morning, everyone. Great to have you in this beautiful, beautiful day today. Great to see some familiar faces, some friends are coming back. Good to see everyone here. Special because, I think every Sunday you'll be able to be here is special day, but today is special because we have a guest, special guest as well. But as you know, before any work for us to help to concentrate, to focus, we have our opening prayer. And today, Olivia is going to do our opening prayer today.
Hello, everybody. Let's all close our eyes. Dear God, thank you for bringing us together today. Thank you for the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the family that we love, and the friends that we share. Bless all the people in the world who are fortunate to have the things that we have. Bless all the people who are being born and dying every single day and getting a new opportunity to learn from their mistakes and improve their lives. Thank you for bringing us together to learn about all the good things that we can do and how we can improve ourselves in this life. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to learn about the truth and how we can make ourselves better people and eventually become one.
Thank you very much, Olivia. What a way to start our work today. We're very fortunate to have our special guest. I also like to say that Fernanda Nedimar here from the group Ask. They're here as well today. But our special guest today is Yuri Castro. Professionally, Yuri Castro is a doctor in clinical psychology. So he helped teens and adults with mental disorders. But also, he's an active worker in Florida, in streets in Florida, a conscious living uh, center, the same one that our friends Marcelo Neto, Marshall, Susana Simões. Also, he's a speaker at the United States Federation. I think was the last week was a live talk, and he also has channels on YouTube and um, Spotify. So if you're interested, it's a very dear friend, and today he's going to explore the path of forgiveness. So someone that works professionally with the pains and sorrows of our minds, but also at the same time how forgiveness can help our soul. So I'd like you to unfold Yuri in our class with you. Happy to welcome Yuri Castro. So Yuri may be whispering a little bit, not because we'll be telling secrets. Maybe he's telling some secrets, but unfortunately, yesterday getting out from the plane, he got a sore throat. He's doing a lot of effort here today, so that's why I just let you know his voice is a little bit different from what it used to be. Whoever saw him speaking, but he's here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. I apologize from the start for the quality of my voice. I had a voice yesterday at lunch. By dinner, I didn't have one. And this happens from time to time with me where I get laryngitis and I lose my voice for 10 days, 14 days. And it's my tool for a living. But we can practice resignation. We can practice a lot of the things that we preach in lectures like this when something like that happens, and it shows how much we cannot control, how much is outside of our control, and we have to accept, we have to do our best. So I never started a lecture like saying this before, but I'm very sorry for the quality of my voice. I promise I'll try to do my best. And I hope you guys can understand me and can take the message, which is why I'm here for. And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, the path of forgiveness. And some people might wonder, isn't it the path to forgiveness? Why is it of and not to forgiveness? There's a big difference there that I'm going to be exploring. But before we go there, I just wanted to ask you to do an exercise. Which one of these do you guys think is the path of forgiveness? Is it the hard one, the medium hard, or the easy path? There's an even better way for us to see where we are. And I'm going to invite you to do an exercise with me for those who are comfortable doing that. I'm going to tell you two things. So listen to them first and then do them, please. First, I would like you, don't do it yet. I'm going to ask everybody to close their eyes. And I'm going to ask if you ever thought that it was hard for you to ask for forgiveness or to accept forgiveness in your life. With your eyes closed, I want you to raise your hand and keep it. So go ahead, close your eyes. If it was ever hard for you to ask for forgiveness or to receive and accept forgiveness from someone else, don't open your eyes yet. Just raise your hand and leave it there. Leave your hands up, those who raised it. Now open your eyes and look around with your hands raised. Do we have any question why we're all here? Are there any doubts? Are there any doubts of how hard it is to forgive or to ask for forgiveness? Because for those who are online, 90% of their hands went up, if not more. So that shows us how much we all have to learn still to forgive, to accept forgiveness when somebody makes a mistake against us. And how hard that is, because if it was easy, anybody and everybody would do it. Statistically, that's not what I saw. Statistically, we saw that most of us, myself included, have struggled or still struggle with asking for forgiveness or accepting forgiveness. So let's look at some examples from the Spiritist doctrine for us to realize. First, we learn that unrestricted forgiveness emanates from noble feelings, from true attitudes. Unrestricted forgiveness is something that happens when we are able to ask for forgiveness or to forgive without any conditions, with no strings attached. Because a lot of the times we forgive, but we don't forget. And we keep it to ourselves. I'll forgive you right now, but I'll remember next time that happens. And I'll feel even more hurt if it happens again. So that's not unrestricted forgiveness, but unrestricted forgiveness emanates from these noble feelings, from these true attitudes. And it is all rooted in love. And we already did this exercise here. But why do we think it's hard to forgive or ask for forgiveness? Like I said, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And it's not what we see. So why is it so hard? Because we're all still learning. That's the short answer. We're all still in our path of perfecting ourselves, because we are perfect beings in the sense that we were created from something perfect, but we are in an imperfect state. Keep that in mind. We all have the love of God. We were created from that spark. We all have that spark. But we are marching towards something perfect. We're marching towards the plenitude of the Spirit. We're not there yet. That's why we are in a planet of trials and expiations. Second in the 5 categories that they listed. That's why we're still here. Trials and atonements. That's why we're all still learning to forgive and to ask for forgiveness. But we also have obstacles in this path of forgiveness, don't we? I listed just some here. Pride, selfishness, arrogance, wrath, pessimism, vanity. These are all things that get in the way of us to forgive or to ask for forgiveness. And as we learn in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in the book, the Spirit's book, actually everywhere, Spiritism, we learn pride and selfishness, the two scourges of our moral development, the two biggest obstacles, because in a sense, they are the direct antithesis, the opposite of charity and humility. Because if I'm selfish, I cannot be charitable. And if I'm prideful, I can't be humble. That's why charity as the highest of the virtues, and also humility, as we'll see, are these things that are necessary for us to understand and put into practice in the path of forgiveness, or specifically in the path to forgiveness. We also have as obstacles waiting for the other person to ask for forgiveness. How many times has that been an obstacle for all of us? I'm going to wait for the person to come and ask for forgiveness. I'm going to wait for them to accept my forgiveness, or I'm just going to, I made a mistake as well. But you made it first. You got to apologize first. And then I'll apologize. And the other person says the same thing. No, but I did it because you did that time. And then we end up in a therapy room, in an office, because we're struggling with these things. So waiting for someone else to give something, and I put it here, that no one can give what one does not have. It sounds almost obvious, this sentence. How can I give something I don't have yet? I'll have, we're all gonna eventually. But how can I give something from my heart, a virtue that's not there yet? And sometimes when we wait for someone else to ask for forgiveness for something they may have done, we might fall into this trap here of waiting for them to show a bit of a virtue that they don't have practiced yet. We're all here. We all raise our hands, most of us. But we all came here individually. We all came here with unique paths, unique spiritual paths. We're all unique individuals. So for someone, they may have practiced some virtue. Someone else may have practiced another virtue already. I may have practiced a third. So if I'm waiting for the person to ask for forgiveness, thinking they have that capacity, just like, let's say I do, I may be waiting my whole life. And that's not going to happen. So that's the issue. When we become passive observers of our lives, when we go into a passive situation where we're waiting for the other person, that is a big obstacle. And it's a learning process for all of us, for everyone. We are here to learn. Like I said, we are in an imperfect state, marching towards perfection, marching towards the plenitude that we will reach. We will. But it's going to be billions and billions of years before we reach that. Christ was what he was before the earth was even here, 4.5 billion years ago. He has gone through so much already. And so we have to be able to understand and accept that. But that doesn't mean just staying still and not doing anything. It's funny, much like the little sign that's there that says don't quit, it says do it. It is like that. We have to accept that we are fallible. We have to accept that the other person is also fallible, because guess what? Guess where they are. Once we accept that, once we internalize that, it becomes so much easier to go on the path of forgiveness, either asking forgiveness or receiving or accepting somebody else forgiving to us, which sometimes is not going to come with words. We have to remember that as well. It's very hard to come and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Sometimes the other person is not going to do it. We're going to be waiting for that. But in their minds, in their hearts, or through a gesture, they may show almost like extending a hand and say, look, I'm sorry. Maybe that's the best they can do. So we have to be on the lookout for that, not just passively waiting for things to happen to us. Joanna DeAngelis, and I like to put the source material for the slides, usually on the top right corner. This one is from a book by Psychograph by Divaldo. She says that the damaging vibrational loads that are thrown by the mind into the central nervous system will affect the circulatory system with negative results for the respiratory system. At the same time that the endocrine glands will be harmed by these energies, sending them to the immune system, which is destroyed. So what is Joanna saying here? She's saying that a large number of organic illnesses and psychological disorders arise from troubled feelings. So the importance of our thoughts, because we learn with Spiritism how our thoughts can shape how we feel, they can shape how we behave, they can shape our whole reality and the reality of those around us. We have uncovered through the Spiritist literature so much about the cosmic fluid, about how the thought actually changes matter. It's just a different type of matter. So when we understand that, when we accept that our thoughts play such a crucial role, we can start to understand how our thoughts can be influencing us in the path of forgiveness by holding on to resentment sometimes. I dare you to think of somebody who's very resentful and doesn't have any health issues. You're not going to find. They may mask it well, they may have good genetics perhaps, but you're not going to find. Because those negative emotions, those negative thoughts, they damage the body. So when we're in the path of forgiveness, we have to remind ourselves how our thoughts impact that path. So it's not just what I'm saying to the other person. How am I thinking about them? How am I thinking of them? What sort of feelings am I emanating to the person? They're never going to know. I said I forgive them, but I'm just thinking bad thing. I hope something worse happens to them. But I didn't say it. I said I forgive you. Is that true forgiveness? Kardec and the spirits beg to differ, because in the Gospel according to Spiritism, he's going to say that there are two ways to forgive and avoid future problems. And I put a little image here to show us these are the two ways to forgive. And we don't need to be a spiritist to understand which one is better. But this is almost what happens to us in our psychological journey, isn't it? Reincarnation after reincarnation, we make mistakes, we improve, sometimes we stumble, we make the same mistake, and we'll take a step back. Then we continue on this process. That's the B. There's one way to get to the point. There's another way, and sometimes we go through the B way. But what Kardec's going to say, and the spirits are going to say, is that path A is the true forgiveness. It's when it emanates from noble feelings. It's when the person is truly generous and the person does it without any hidden thoughts. That's A. The person does without any hidden thoughts, with no strings attached. I'll forgive you, but you got to do something for me now. And he also says that this one way to forgive without any hidden thoughts, this one, and this is so hard, it also avoids humiliating the other person, making them humiliate themselves. I'll forgive you, but you got to crawl to me. You got to be on your knees asking for forgiveness, because that was a huge mistake. That first way doesn't do that. That first way is just noble. Noble, he says, noble and great. The second way is the way that imposes conditions, is the way that imposes conditions on the person who is asking for our forgiveness. And look at this is a hidden one. And in the second way, there's also this idea that I'm going to forgive that person to make a show of it. Look how generous I am. They say that in the gospel according to Spiritism. Look how generous I am. I'm forgiving this person. Look how it comes from pride. Comes from vanity. So not only I may not even impose humiliating conditions, but even if I don't, I'm doing it for show. And Kardec says, and the spirits are also going to say that whenever we go in that second route, that's forgiveness from the lips. The first one is forgiveness from the heart. When we truly, truly forgive it here first. Here first. Even before sometimes the person comes to ask our forgiveness, we already forgive them. That's the true one. Whereas the second one is from the lips. We just forgive so other people can come and see how generous we are, how forgiving we are, and say, oh, look at him, wow. He's such an evolved spirit. Forgave so easily, did you see that? And why avoid future problems? Because that's the second part. Well, because we'll see how many cases, again, Spiritist literature is filled with this, how many cases of spiritual obsessions come from a lack of forgiveness. There's a lot of books there. I always recommend people go buy the books. We're going to see with André Luiz, with Joanna, with Emmanuel, with Humberto de Campos, Amelia Rodriguez, you name it. We will see how many cases of spiritual obsession arise from the lack of the forgiveness. The first one we talked about, the forgiveness from the heart. So future problems here, he's saying, it's because a lot of the times we will forgive or we'll think we have forgive the person or ask for forgiveness halfway. Sorry. When we truly don't feel sorry. Or when we're just doing it for show. Or doing it because there was a condition imposed on us to do that. That one can cause future problems because Kardec is going to say as well how many cases of spiritual obsession continue after the person dies. Obviously, we are immortal spirits. We are inhabiting this thing here temporarily. It's just an instrument. This is going to go. Everything that's here is going to go back to dust. What's going to stay? The things we do with our spirit. The virtues we try to practice, being better than we were yesterday, without comparing ourselves to others. Those are the things that are going to stay with us, truly, forever. Those are the treasures that Jesus talks about, the treasures that no one can steal, that don't accumulate rust. Those are the treasures of the soul, of the spirit. So when we forgive or when we attempt to get to the path of forgiveness, we have this one in the book, The Astral City, which is on Nosso Lar by André Luiz, from the colony Our Home, or Nosso Lar, Portuguese. And Laura, who is one of the characters, she's going to tell André Luiz that many spirits, she says, many spirits will spend centuries trying to overcome bitter feelings of hatred and resentment during their early passage, only to revert to them on re-entering the spiritual world. So they spent decades and decades trying to revert that animosity, only to get back to that once they disincarnate. Because we're not just talking here for incarnated people. There's a lot of disincarnated spirits listening to this. So we have to understand, and she says that the problem of forgiveness, André, she says that to him, Laura, is one of extreme importance. Because she says those who would really forgive must dig deep into themselves and cast off the venomous dregs of former times. And I bolded themselves, dig deep into themselves. What does that mean? That means that a lot of the times, this lack of forgiveness, this animosity, comes from previous reincarnations as well. And these things stay with us. The people we are born with, the people we're surrounded by, are those that we must be surrounded by. Why? Because we need to be with them for one reason or another. Family. Blood ties us. So in the material planes like ours, we need that tie in order to improve relationships that before, meaning in other lives, were destroyed. Either by us or by the other person or by both. Or three people, however many we can think of. So that's why she's saying that we must dig deep into ourselves and cast off the venomous drags of former times. We must learn to forgive and to ask for forgiveness so we can move on. That's why most people here raise their hands in the beginning, because it is so hard. But it's something that must be done. Because we're not going to get there if we don't learn and work on these virtues. And we are getting there. Progress is unstoppable. There's a law of progress. You may delay it with mistakes. We are progressing. The fact that we are here means we're already progressed. Otherwise, we'd be in a primitive world. So we can do it. It's very, very hard, but we can do it. If we go to the Spirit's book, question 887, Kardec asked, Jesus has also said, love your enemies. But would it not be contrary to our natural tendencies to love our enemies? And mind you, this comes right after question, one of my favorite ones. There even is one. 886, how did Jesus understand charity? That's the question that comes before this one. And their answer, which by the way I think is such an amazing question. And I wonder the Spirit who actually answer that, or the spirits who answer that, to translate what a spirit like Jesus thought of charity. That's a big responsibility in that answer. But they say three things. Benevolence for others. So benevolence for everyone, towards everyone, benevolence. Indulgence for other people's mistakes. Indulgence, for other people's imperfections and forgiveness of mistakes. Benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. That is how Jesus understood charity. And we can already think here. Those three aspects are so important for us. And forgiveness is right there, is the third one. Forgiveness for other people's mistakes. But when we don't have the indulgence for people's imperfections, meaning we understand that they will make mistakes, they are imperfect. Oh, but I would never do that. I would never do it. You shouldn't do it. I don't know. I don't know their path. More, and even going further, we can think, I don't know their spiritual trajectory. Maybe that behavior that is something so atrocious for us, it's already a step forward for them. So that's why indulgence is so important. That's why benevolence towards everyone becomes so key. And forgiveness for other people's mistakes. But going back to 887 here, how can we love those who hurt us on purpose? Because enemies, not like he didn't say love your friends who sometimes hurt you. Right? Love those who love you, but will make mistakes. No. Love your enemies. It's a strong word. Even 2,000 years ago, enemies. Just like we see in the world today, but before, even with war, even more spread out than it is right now, everybody was an enemy, almost. People on the other side of the river, an enemy. People with different religion, an enemy. Different language, an enemy. Different color of the skin. And so enemy encompasses so much. So Jesus says, love our enemies, but they say, wouldn't it be contrary to love our enemies? And their answer is, it would certainly be impossible for a man to feel tender and ardent affection for his enemies. And Jesus did not intend to prescribe anything of the kind. To love your enemies means to forgive them and to return good for evil. By doing so, you become their superior, not in an arrogant way, not in a vain way. By vengeance, you place yourselves beneath them. So the loving your enemy, one of the key things, and there's more to this answer. Also, it's not making impositions or making barriers when the reconciliation is at hand or things like that. But the one I wanted to bring is this. It's to forgive them. Benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. That's true charity. So loving our enemies is so hard, but if we deconstruct sort of like the more subjective sentence, we can see that it's not having this affection towards those who want to hurt us, but it's having the compassionate look that Jesus had towards everyone. Because I doubt anybody here has suffered more than what Jesus did. I don't know any one of you. Most of you I don't know. But I would go off on a limb here and say, let's think of everything that Jesus had to endure, had to suffer, and let's think to ourselves, am I going to get crucified after this lecture here? Because there's Roman soldiers wanting to arrest me? No. But Jesus, only 3 years of ministry, official ministry. Everybody in the end, or both people of the time, both peoples, they had animosity towards him for different reasons. So they lied, they crucified him unjustly, they just wanted to get rid of him. When did he ever show resentment towards those enemies? When can we find a passage of Jesus not having that compassionate eye, compassionate look of saying, don't understand me now, you will one day. He always had that. So humility, we see, is one of the essential components in the path of forgiveness. Why? Because, like I said before, it is direct opposite of pride. Two scourges of our moral development, pride and selfishness. Forgiveness or humility, and humility being one of the pillars of forgiveness, is important because when I'm humble, I try to understand the other person. I try to see myself as fallible as well. I can make that mistake. If I'm judging that person right now, who knows if I'm not going to make that mistake tomorrow? Or let me go even further. Who knows if I have not already made that mistake? Most likely we have. It's one of the things I was reading on the plane here, another book by Leon Denis. He was saying that, he's one of my favorite authors, by the way. He was saying that we don't need to know, there was a question that somebody raised to him, was like, how can I, if there's this veil of forgetfulness with reincarnation, how can I know what I need to improve? Or how can I know if I need to improve? Or something like that. And he said, you don't need to remember everything. All we need to do is look around and see what type of planet we are, what type of people we're surrounded by. Then we'll know that our past is probably not one rife with humbleness and humility and charity and saint-type living. We don't need to know much, but we need to be humble and enough to accept that we can make mistakes as well. Jesus put humility, they're going to say, the categories that bring, or the virtues that bring man near to God. Humble, having that humility. We're talking about in the car how small we are compared to the whole universe. How small. are we really? How tiny compared to everything that's out there, the many mansions of our Father's house. So when we become humble, when we work on humility, we understand that we can make mistakes. We may have made mistakes. The other person can make them as well. We become more indulgent. Sometimes we may feel that to forgive, I put that there, or to ask for forgiveness constitutes an act of debasement, meaning lowering myself, which is actually the opposite. Asking for forgiveness, true asking, and true receiving are not acts of debasement. Debasement meaning just putting myself down. Because Emmanuel is also going to say in the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, that a big obstacle to forgiveness is called the message number 177, conventional opinions. It says, be careful, basically. Be careful with the crowd is going to say. Because he says, if you tolerate offenses with love, they call you a fool. If you forgive without conditions, they'll say you've gone mad. If you dislike the earthly pleasures, they're going to call you. And then he continues, this list goes on and on and on. So he says, be careful with the opinion of the others. He says the opinions of the crowd, because those can exert a big influence on our actions. We are social creatures. We need each other. We have each other. But be careful. So whenever we may feel that if I forgive that person, truly forgive, or if I truly come in and say, I'm sorry, we may be lowering ourselves. But this lowering that I'm putting quotation marks here, it's actually the opposite. We're coming closer to God. We're working on that virtue that is going to bring us closer to God. It's a miracle my voice is still here, but let's go. In the book Living Spring, Emmanuel is going to say as well, this is message 159 with love. He's going to say, though, and I like to put, by the way, I like to put a lot of the stuff from the books there in quotation marks. And I put the source because I love books. I want people to read those books. So I always put the text exactly how it is because one, I can never say as well as they did. Number two, I want people to read and be like, wow, this is there. Let me go get that book. Let me see what else is there. So I always emphasize that. Those who love their neighbor know above all to understand. But if we really do love the brother or sister on our path, the scenery of our life changes because the light of love bathes our vision. Therefore, love, and just as mud can never offend the light, offense can never put you down, or offense can never can never touch you. And I underline two words there. I'll read this next one and I'll explain. Forgiveness, he continues, combined with complete forgetfulness for the blows you have received, will arise spontaneously in your spirit, just as tolerance is natural for the spring that receives the stones that are cast into it. Forgiveness combined with the forgetfulness for the blows will arise in our spirit. I don't know about you, I'm far from that natural state of this thing just arising. But we'll get there. We will get there. And I underline, I love Emmanuel. I can say I don't mind. It's my favorite spiritual author. Leon Denis is my favorite incarnate one that wrote. He is so poetic sometimes, so good with his words. He's a wordsmith. That if we stop to think, look at what this message is saying here. Mud can never offend the light. Spring, the stone. So he's talking about almost two opposites. Mud, something that's often dirty, something that's thick, is viscous. That cannot offend the light. And he's mentioning love here. That cannot offend the light, meaning the lower feelings, these ones that look like mud, cannot offend love. Because love is the light. The light is much more than the mud. And then the stones that are cast into the spring, he's saying the tolerance there. The spring, what is the spring? It's something that's serene, it's peaceful. It's that water that flows naturally. The stones, rough, sometimes pointy. When they're cast into the spring accepts them. That is the true message. That is something for us to realize, how forgiveness is that light, because forgiveness is an act of love. Asking for forgiveness. And when I say asking, by the way, it's not just the act of verbally saying it. There's many ways we can ask for forgiveness. And we have to start with ourselves, by the way. Or accepting when somebody makes a mistake against us, to forgive that person. It's an act of love. And just like the mud can never offend the light, or the stones can never really touch the spring, we're going to be above that. We're going to look at the other person with indulgence for their imperfections, forgiveness for their mistakes, and benevolence to everyone. So forgiveness is this gesture of love, along with gratitude and some of the pillars that we can think about. And we all have that in us. That's something I want each and every one of you to have. Once you leave here, we all have that. We all have that capacity. Just need to do it, like it says in the sign there. Chico Xavier used to say that forgiveness is a lesson so hard that Christ left it for one of the last ones. Whereas he taught forgiveness over and over and over. But he's saying, Chico says that, that, and there's also another sentence that he said, that the courage of love creates the blessing of forgiveness. Wow. The courage of love creates the blessing of forgiveness. When we are brave enough to ignore what others will say, when we truly can love unrestricted, forgive without any strings attached, we will be shown the courage of love, because it takes courage to step up. It takes courage to be better than we were yesterday, because we can be accommodated in what we have and what we are, but it takes courage to change. And this courage of love creates the blessing of forgiveness, because forgiveness and love are very tied. Also, self-forgiveness. I cannot, as a psychologist as well, talk about forgiveness without talking about self-forgiveness. I personally struggle more with this one, so this is more for me. What is that? Joanna De Angelis, through the hands of Divaldo. So many books on forgiveness, on self-forgiveness. This one is from the small book called Happy Life. She's going to say that, do not nail yourself, she says, do not nail yourself in the cross of a guilty conscience. After our mistake, let us not fall into the pits of remorse and despair. You cannot allow yourself to be consumed by regret. It only has the function of making you aware of the harm done. Forgive yourself. Encourage yourself. There's a typo there. And then begin the task of repair. So that is there to teach us when we feel bad for our actions. We are there, we're learning. It's a teaching moment for us. She says, don't nail yourself to the cross of a guilty conscience after you realize the mistake. Start the process now. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start the process of forgiveness. And Emmanuel is going to say that on days when offense hits us in the face, forgiveness, much more than a blessing for our supposed offender, is and will always be the best for us. Wow. So even if somebody comes to me and I forgive them, He's saying is and will always be. He's using two. I love to look at the words, specific things. He's using two verb tenses here. Is, meaning right now, it is already, and will always be the best for us. Forgiveness, much more than a blessing for the other person, is and it will always be the best for us. Because we lose ourselves from the prison that we create with resentment. So that is something so powerful. Those who harm us or hurt us often find themselves so attached to their own distress that deep down they suffer much more than us. That's so true. Sometimes the people that hurt us, the enemies, they find themselves entrenched in hatred and lower passions. They are suffering way more than us. And he's going to say us. And he says, I didn't put it there, but he says the supposed offended. He says the people who are supposedly offended. He's saying here. He also talks about in this book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, that we must work industriously to eliminate the corrosion that has attacked the treasures of our spirit. It is indispensable to grasp the perfect selflessness and unconditional forgiveness of the gospel story so that we may truly move forward to meet Christ. He's talking about the corrosions. And I put the quotation mark there. What is this corrosion? And the message is called corroded treasure. These things that just bring us down, that slow our march of progress. He says we must work industriously. We must work very hard to grasp the selflessness and unconditional forgiveness so we may move more forward to meeting with Christ. And who better than to teach us about forgiveness than him or anything else? And one of the passages that's famous one is this one where they're all gathered there and Simon Peter says, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? And then he offers a number up to 7 times. It became famous. And I always think to myself, and I like to say this in these lectures, why did he suggest that number? Sure, 7 here, there's like a lot of like important things with 7. Why did he say 7? To me, Simon Peter being how he was, very, very face value, very much, passion, and say whatever comes to mind. To me, in that moment, he probably made a quick note when he was saying, how many times shall I forgive? And he was probably thinking, 1 is hard, 2 is very hard, 3 is very, very, 7? I think he suggested that number because it would be something that he probably thought that Jesus was going to say, oh, no, 7 is a lot. Do 3. And then what was the answer? 7 times 70. And I've looked at different translations of the Bible. Some say 77, which is still very, very hard. 7 times 70. And there's the story with Chico Xavier as well, where he was there one time. This woman came to him and she said, Chico, I have forgiven my husband, my sons. They all hurt me so much throughout my life. I have forgiven them. If I count everything, probably for 190 times, but I still feel down. And Emmanuel was next to him, a spirit mentor, and he told Chico, and Chico told the woman, my daughter Emmanuel is here telling me that it's not 409 times combined, it's 409 times each offense made against you. In other words, Jesus was saying, stop, don't count. It's unconditional. Don't count. You're not going to count. The person makes a mistake against you, you forgive. Let's say you truly forgive. And then that same person makes that same mistake against you. Let's say you forgive again. And then they make the 3rd time. Oh, no, you have to be kidding me. 3 times already? What, don't you learn? Now, imagine that scenario is supposed to be 490 times. What was he saying? That's going to come so naturally that we're not going to need to count. Obviously, we don't need to count. Just forgive. Christ, in that last moment, the cross did not change his serenity, and while on it, He asked forgiveness for the crowd's ignorance. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. They know not what they do. And Amelia Rodriguez, who rose to the hands of Vivaldo, she's also going to say that Christ was saying that not only to the incarnate ones that were there, because there was a large crowd of discarnate spirits suffering, hating. And he was saying that to everyone. Forgive them, for they don't know. They know not what they do. They're still ignorant. Which is why we must, as best as we can, try to work ourselves, within ourselves, in these virtues so we can forgive. So we can forgive ourselves, forgive those who err against us, and forgive and ask for forgiveness as well. We must be able to do that. There's so many, I'm very annoying with this, so many books for us to read, so many different types of literature. If you like romance, there are romances where you can learn about this. Or I prefer messages, there are messages. All those books are too big. There are small books of messages too. There is no excuse. And Antulio already mentioned this. Some people say I don't like to read, I don't have the habit, or just last month, I released a podcast on Spotify and YouTube, 15 minutes episodes with a piano in the back, with a spiritist reflection. You can read, you can listen to it. There's so many different ways. You guys are here today observing a lecture. That's another way. There are so many different ways. And for those who want to check it out, it's called Spiritist Companion in English. There's a channel on YouTube and Spotify in English. There's also one for Portuguese people. Oh, but I don't speak English very well. Here's the Portuguese one. I do this podcast in Portuguese as well. It's called Companheiro Espírita. And there's my name, Yuri Castro, there. So look it up. But this is not for self-promotion. I made it so people can have more ways to access the message. Because I don't want anybody to say, I don't like to read. So, well, listen. Oh, but podcasts are too long, 1 hour of interviews, where here's one that's 15 minutes. So it's ways for us to better ourselves, but to put into practice and to close our time here today. I brought 3 things that we can do because I love the applicable nature of Spiritism, and we must leave here applying this knowledge. The first one is through our actions. Ask somebody for forgiveness. Accept the forgiveness. Go embrace them. Tell them how much you love them. Tell them how much you respect them. That you forgive them truly. Oh, but the person I have resentment towards has already gone to the other side of the life. There's a prayer. Pray. Pray for that person. Pray for yourself. Truly emanate a thought for that person through the prayer, through this moment of introspection, through this moment of connection between you and God, between you and yourself. Pray for that person. Pray to that person as well. Oh, but I don't have the habit of praying. My day is too busy. Oh, no worries. I have another one for you then. Send a thought of love to that person. Send a thought of love. And Emmanuel says that nobody is busy to the point that they cannot even stop for a couple of seconds and emanate a thought based on true emotions, on true feelings. No one is that busy. We can all do that. And we must do that because, as we'll see, the path of forgiveness, a lot of us may have thought that is the hard one, but actually, the path to forgiveness is a hard one, but the path of forgiveness is that one filled with flowers. And I'm making a wordplay with the preposition. Yes, I know. Because the path of forgiveness, and Emmanuel is going to tell Chico as well. I mean, Chico says, Emmanuel tells me that the person who learns to forgive has a clear path ahead of them. because these things of the world will not gonna matter so much anymore, because they truly learn to forgive the right way. So the path of forgiveness is a path that is very much filled with a free walkway, with flowers, with nature, with contact with God, with intimate connection with our Creator and with our Master Jesus. So I hope we have been able to understand a little bit more about forgiveness, and I wish everybody, sorry for my voice, I wish everybody a very have a very blessed week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.